Welcome to NC Political Tea, the home for conservative truth with a side of Southern charm. From the hollers of the Blue Ridge Mountains to the sandy shores of the Outer Banks, we've got our finger on the pulse of every political heartbeat in the Tar Heel State. So grab a sweet tea, kick back, and let's dive deep into the 2024 election madness.
Well,
hello, everybody. Welcome to NC Political Tea. Hey, Margot, how are you?
I'm great. Look, I got my studio set up. I got my lighting in. I got my MacBook up. We're working. We're rocking and rolling now.
You're on a MacBook?
I'm on a MacBook Pro.
I'm on a MacBook Pro.
Wow. See what you can do with technology.
It's great. It's great. So here we are. I believe this is show number 6 for us. So I think we're hitting a little bit of a stride.
We're over the hump. They say if you can make it past 4, you're really moving forward.
Oh, okay. Is that right? So more than 4 shows.
And the next goal should be 50.
Okay. All right. Well, before we reach election day, that's going to be 50. So we're getting there.
Well on our way.
But we are extremely busy. I just got off of a radio interview with WBT in Charlotte. I talked to the great Chad Adams, and I felt like I really was a blabbermouth because he asked me, what's going on out there in NC politics? And I'm like, dude, where do I start? Right? We've got the budget process going on. We've got legislation going on. We've got, candidates who are running. We're all over the map.
And there's so much in the legislation going on. I mean, Sloan, from marijuana all the way down to citizen voting. We've got a lot to talk about today.
We have a lot to talk about today, so let's get right to it. So this is one of the most controversial bills that's under discussion right now. The House, a couple weeks ago, put out a bill to regulate hemp. And now it looks like today the Senate kind of collapsed that House bill into one of their own that puts legalizing marijuana. Now, critics are going to say, hey, Sloan, you're not telling the truth. It's medical marijuana.
Ask people in Colorado and California that.
I'm not going to call. Yeah, it's marijuana. And here's the thing that you should know, that they'll tell you that, people with certain maladies would get it. And when I hear end stage cancer, things like that, I'm like, I'm fine. But then you go with PTSD, dude, everyone has a diagnosis of PTSD. Correct. Seriously, it's being over-diagnosed.
I agree with you, Sloan. And I'm worried because we see what's going on in Colorado. It's kind of collapsed already. They thought they were running into a gold mine, and it's really ended up not being that way. And then you look at Florida, who also has medical marijuana, but isn't medical when anybody can walk into a dispensary in Pensacola on your way to the beach. And then the bigger concern I have is legally, what does it mean when you're under the influence? And what are the guidelines for that?
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And when I have spoken to sheriffs across North Carolina, they are definitely not for it for this reason. I didn't even think about it. But when they smell marijuana smoke, they're whatever it's called, they have the right to question someone, to stop someone, for it to lead to a discussion. And they've told me that at least half of the instances, they discover that someone's here illegally or an outstanding warrant. But those conversations now, they won't be able to be had since it's legal.
Well, and I think there's another piece that we're not talking about, and I want to bring this up because it's important for kids. I have a girlfriend in Atlanta who lost her son. He could have easily just taken one hit off a joint that was laced with fentanyl and he would have been gone, but that's not what happened. He took a pill that he thought was a Tylenol. But I think about it in parallel because we know kids do that. We know they do.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm going to put up some things right here from Colorado. This is a study that's done frequently on the side effects. Now, again, they do have recreational pot that they have legalized, but I'm telling you, it's can be abused. It's one and the same to me. That you'll see that young people kind of struggle with this the most. There's been a lot of auto accidents, people under the influence, and I'm vehemently opposed to it. I know that we have people in our own party that are for it, but I made this prediction. I made it online before and took a lot of heat, but I really believe it. If you know, and I don't think the bill has a chance in the House. I just want to be clear. But if they do pass this, along with all of the blood, sweat, and tears and hard feelings that went into casinos, also and sports betting, we're going to have a hell of a time getting evangelicals and other really conservative folks out to vote.
I think there's another component of it to me is people don't talk about, and I know some people think this is crazy, but it can be considered a gateway drug. And I'm not saying that it is for everybody. I know plenty of veterans that need to take something like that for their PTSD, and I strongly advocate for them. But I don't want children taking it. I don't want to put ourselves in a position where that happens.
Well, PTSD, I mean, there's no, they're training teachers now in North Carolina to believe that if you have the skin color of Black, that you have PTSD.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called trauma-informed teaching, and it's a big thing now here. But if it's trauma-informed, and begs the question, the diagnosis is all but meaningless. I think that's a real problem. There are some bright spots, though, that happened today. The Senate is really in favor. I think it's going to be, it's going to pass, I think, a constitutional amendment for making sure that U.S. citizens only can vote.
Well, the only concern I have with that is you would think that having a North Carolina driver's license that marks you as a U.S. citizen, you'd be cleared. But that's not what happened. We've had people in the DMV who just marked them as U.S. citizens, and now their driver's license says they are one.
But does that happen in a lot of cases? I mean, how widespread do you think that is?
It just depends on what you're talking about. Tucker Carlson said there was 4,000 that we know of, and another 10 that they suspected. So, I mean, do we want 14,000 people, 4,000 people? I mean, that's a concern. That's my only concern, because frankly, anything we can do to stave off the radical agenda, which they're using already, because we have voter ID, but they've created a voter ID exemption form that pretty much says if your dog eats your driver's license, you can vote anyway.
Interesting. So that will more than likely go on as a constitutional amendment. So folks will have to vote on it. I don't know if it's when it will be enacted, but last time we talked about on Tuesday, we talked about some of the things that were in the House budget. And I want to tell you, I got some messaging. People were like, Sloan, you're only talking about the bad things. That's probably true. So tonight I'm going to tell you a couple of good things. But we talked about this, and I just want to bring this up, Margot. The Senate agrees with the House about this $135 million for daycare. So this probably will pass. And again, guys, that is saying, okay, the feds stopped paying for a federal program, and the state's going to pick it up, which has always been our argument against Medicaid expansion.
It's the same, because it goes to the same result. It's a form of socialism.
It's a form of socialism. And then you meaning the leaders of our party, because they're up there running the place. Since when do we trust the feds to keep up their end of the bargain? Since when do we believe that they're going to fund us in perpetuity for a program that you can only ratchet up, you can't ratchet down?
Yeah. Right.
And so, that's one of our chief complaints. So I think that will probably, go along. Teacher raises, the House wanted to raise teacher raises an extra 1%, bringing it to 4%, and the Senate left that out. The increase in public school spending will probably stay the same. Of course, the public school voucher or the private school vouchers, that's going to happen, right? That's kind of the centerpiece of it all. So, okay, guys, there are things I like in this budget. I'm just going to tell you, in the House budget, I'm putting up the text right here. I hope you can see it. They're providing for a media advisory committee in public schools. And what it means is it's going to put together a committee of community leaders, parents, et cetera, that they have the opportunity to look at some of these library books. And I think some of this curriculum and say, is this aligned with our standard course of studies and, all of that. They're going to provide a little bit of room for parents to respond. What do you think, Margot?
Well, I like the second one the best. The fact that the local government has the sole authority to decide what is being taught. I'm fine with them giving money for underprivileged children and children in general to go to daycare if it's done appropriately. And part of this to me may backfire on the Democrats because they think that they're pro-abortion. But if you take the problem of I can't afford a child by allowing to pay for daycare, you know what I mean? So some part of this is good to me, but I really love the local discretion to stop whatever, because it really should be up to the local government. I can tell you where I live in Western North Carolina, far Western North Carolina, we don't approve of some of the things that we know that Raleigh and Wake County would approve of, and we don't want them here.
Well, that's a bit of a misnomer because when you're taking federal funds, and so the way it works, and even though it's a minuscule amount, the DPI who disseminates those funds will regulate to an extent. Let me give you an example: social emotional learning. So some funding for COVID came with those strings, and it also came with the strings that culturally responsive teaching, and that is CRT, be taught. So while it is at the local level discretion, the state does have a lot of input. In fact, the lion's share, because the EOGs, the end of grade testing, that everything they do has to be aligned. And when you have these social studies standards, which we've been criticizing for a while, who have CRT in it, sadly, that's right. Sadly, sometimes, local politics be damned, this is going to happen. And so we do need to, watch out for that. So, but that's one good thing in the budget. And there's some tough on crime things that I really love. And hey, I do have to have a shout out right quick. This passed unanimously in the House and the Senate, an anti-human trafficking measure. Let me put this up. So first of all, you recognize this right away, punishing people who hire prostitutes. I think they're called Johns. Whoops, I'm behind the times. Okay, Johns. So
you don't want to know what we called them in my generation.
Yeah, I guess.
With a P.
Right. I get you. I get you. But so I think this is great. I think that, requiring training for folks that run Airbnb, I think it would apply to Airbnbs or lodging, training them on the signs of what to look for is important. And I think having the labor commissioner, that's going to be Luke Farley. We all know that. Having him responsible for doing more training. I think more training is always good on how to recognize this, but this is such a problem.
It is a problem. I can honestly say it's a big problem from where I live, because we're the gateway from Atlanta. Let's just be honest. If you don't want to go through Charlotte on the highway, you're going to come through our way, and you especially want to go through here because we got a casino where you can traffic. I'm not saying they do, but they do.
Yeah,
and you can't. You got to be able to have these measures for all parts of the state. It can't just be something that fits Raleigh and Wake. It fits what we need here locally.
I know that sheriffs have been particularly aggressive about apprehending child predators. I have another story out today on our NC Political Tea Substack where, the guy, it's happening all over. The HR department head in the Department of Revenue, was busted allegedly for, trying to hit up a 15-year-old for sex. And get this, it ended up that there's groups of, you're going to love this, there's groups all over the country of people like you and me and everybody watching who get together and they form these citizen groups and they try to catch predators and they end up being very successful. And and so apparently that's how this guy was hung out to dry and taken off the streets, and yay.
That's the same thing that happened to Stacey Abrams. I think it's her brother-in-law, right? The judge's husband down in Florida. Citizen journalists got together and caught him.
Yeah, look,
everywhere.
Police officers can't do it themselves. No one can do it themselves. Teachers can, no one. We have to be aware. We have to come together and be aware. And in fact, this is kind of what this show is all about.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's that. And so yeah, and so we're going to skip now to start talking about while we're talking about citizen voting and while we're talking about crime. We're going to bring up some hard topics of stuff we've been hearing in the news over the last several weeks about citizens or non-citizens, illegals coming into our country and wreaking havoc, killing people. This is a story that has come out of California where a grandfather was involved in a serious accident where a semi plowed into him, and that man who did it is an illegal from Ecuador. And this kind of stuff happens all the time. And people will say, well, gosh, it happens all the time with citizens. I know that, dummies. I know that. But and by the way, the people saying that are leftists. But what we don't need are added crimes, right? And not being able to find the perpetrators from having these porous borders. We
And
know
no insurance. Let's be honest. It also, they're uninsured.
Well, right. I mean, let's talk about this guy. He was uninsured. They had to spend countless resources to track him down. And look, the law is the law. They're not only breaking the law by doing this, they're coming in to our country, and they're not citizens. And a lot of them, some of them have, yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm very mindful of the Laken Riley thing because she's close to where I live. I'm close to the University of Georgia, and that has to be one of the saddest incidents you've ever heard. This young lady goes out for a walk or a jog, and somebody's watching her. And just like this lady, Rachel.
Just like, just like this lady, yeah. And it's through no fault of their own, might we add, right? Through no fault of their own. So Rachel Morin was killed. She's a mother of 5, you guys. And, she was killed by an illegal, Victor Antonio Hernandez. He was arrested, get this, in Oklahoma. So again, we're talking about using a tremendous amount of resources to track down an illegal. And I think he had a record also.
And he was stalking her previous to, they actually have ring camera footage of him coming out of her house. So he stalked her. And that's been happening a lot. We just recently heard about a young girl up in New York who was raped by an illegal, and the vigilantes, which they should be, that guy right there.
Yep.
They went after him, and rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, a lot of times in a culture, these things are acceptable. Just raping girls. We've seen what's going on over in Europe, where you've got, men from the Congo, Afghanistan, etc., that just, group raping is just their thing. And they're having one hell of a time controlling that. And they've been trying to suppress news of that. But
they say in Scandinavia and in Germany and in France, that's the largest bulk of their crime. Like, you never walk around by yourself. Never. If you're a woman, you never walk alone. And you can't walk with just one other woman. You have to really walk in a group. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, it is bad. And again, this is, we're obviously America First patriots, and that means something to us. It means that the people that are in governance, they care about the people that they're governing. And if you care about the people that you're governing, you want to keep them safe from foreign invaders. That's just, it's common sense.
Absolutely.
It's common sense. And I just wanted to show you this and get your reaction. This is filmed at the border last night. And I
think I read like 30,000 people, mostly single men.
Look at this. Men of fighting age. Look at this, guys. Okay, so this is fresh video. I don't know where it's from. You are seeing some families, but who do you think is going to be taking care of those families? It's going to be us. It's going to be us.
I think I read a statistic too They were talking about the number of American hires versus folks that are not born in America. And the number since 2018 has significantly decreased of American citizens who have been hired in employment, some as low as 2% of Americans only. So we don't know what the statistic is because honestly, I don't think they have it worked out, but it is decreasing rapidly.
And I wonder how honest they are about it. I really do. And I'm to be fair, I don't know where that footage was taken. I'm trying to find out whether it was California or Arizona. Let's see. It was Jacomba, California. So yeah, I don't know the geography. To be fair, I don't know where that was, but it scares the hell out of me.
It scares me because now every state's a border state. It's the crime is here. Mark Robinson got on camera, talked about an illegal that was on the watch list or on the top 10 list.
There was a guy who had ISIS ties. That was one. And then 2 weeks ago, there was an arrest of a guy who had been on a murder spree in Charlotte. And that was another story here in North Carolina. So this can happen. This does happen. We are a border state. I'm going to talk a little bit later in the show about the statistics that they're admitting to, and it's going to knock your socks off. So here's a poll. So if you're a candidate, we're always talking about messaging. You might think, well, heck, I'm not in Arizona. I'm not in Texas. I'm not in California. This isn't an issue. Well, bull crap. It actually is. So this is a pretty reliable study. I mean, this is Rasmussen did this poll and found that 83% of likely North Carolina voters think it's important for the state government to use every available tool to combat illegal immigration,
including 58% who think it's very important. And at one point, we had a bill on the floor to mandate E-Verify, which is mandated anyway. I don't know why we have to have a bill about it, but here we are.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. E-Verify, it's going to say that workers with 25 or more employees have to use E-Verify. But it does give a loophole. Employees who hire temporary and seasonal workers do not. And so that is the loophole that needs to be tightened with E-Verify because, I mean, you could use seasonal workers in farming. And I know that, we're going to get pushback about that, but we cannot.
And that doesn't include 1099 workers, or does it? That's another question based on that story.
I don't know.
The interesting thing for me in that story, Sloan, is that it says 25 workers or more, because that's not the federal standard, just so you know. The federal standard is higher than that. If you work in corporate America like I do, we have to verify. You have I think it's 5 days. If you're not verified in 5 days, you're out.
Yeah.
If you don't have your passport to us and a way for us to verify, you are out.
Yeah, makes sense to me. So we need that bill, but I will say that there has been, there's a Senate bill that I think they just voted on that is going to require ICE cooperation.
Good.
With all sheriffs.
So what we're doing here is taking down the sanctuary cities finally.
Right. And that really needs to pass in this session. I mean, that's critical. The voters want, I mean, if you're being purely political about this, the voters want it.
We need it. It's not a want anymore. If you're in a bordering county to a sanctuary city, let's use Buncombe County, and those surrounding that are not a sanctuary area, everyone suffers.
Yeah. Everyone suffers because it wouldn't be a big deal at all for somebody to slip into a different a county, especially if they were already here illegally.
Right. We should talk about that. Let's talk about some of the epicenters of where illegal immigrants are in North Carolina, because I don't think a lot of people realize about the Newcomer Center in Greensboro, which is part of UNCG and is funded through UNCG. That is super important for people to understand. They actually work with NGOs across the state. You're looking at the counties that they work with, most of them. And there are NGOs that you can find through federal publications on the Homeland Security website that show where refugees and NGOs, which we know are taking in illegals.
Yep.
They can call them refugees. They can call them newcomers. I don't care what you call them. They're bringing them in and telling them where to go. And I have that list. I've done that prior to this podcast. I've actually put out the entire list, and I'll be happy to bring it back, because people just don't understand that we are literally funding groups in our state to place these people in our state that are illegal.
We're going to talk about the composite of the folks that are here that are not naturalized and are here illegally, the ones that they're admitting to. But talk a minute about, because, you know, a lot of people haven't heard about this, the Greensboro, the former Hebrew school that's now being used to house young foreign men.
Well, they say it's now, it hasn't gotten one person in it, but we know that's not true, because there's buses going in and out every day. I'm sure they're not workers, but what they've done is the federal government has created a contract with the former Hebrew school, and they're going to house newcomers, or whatever you want to call them. And they say it's going to be dormitory style and specifically for children. But that's exactly what New Hanover said when they were going to take that school down and put illegals in it, but they wanted families in it. And we know that's what's going to end up happening. Now, we haven't seen the people in the buses there, but there are bus drop-offs in Greensboro, and I do have footage of it, where they do drop them off in a shopping center to be rotated into I think it's a former Rose's, which is an old department store, or, you know, 5 and dime store, and they route them through there and give them all the instructions about where they need to go to do what.
Right. Well, I will say that, you know, in working with school board members across the state, I'm hearing that education services are being rationed. And, you know, in some cases, you know, in Lee County, apparently there's over 42 languages spoken in Lee County public schools. That's a lot for a school system to take on. And in a lot of cases, children aren't getting the education they need, but our services are being rationed for sure. And if you think that we don't have to pay for the healthcare and take care of the healthcare needs of these people, think again. That's pie in the sky thinking.
Well, and I just try to put it in demographics of where I live. 10% of the population in this very small county, less than 10, it's 9.3%, attend public schools here, which is the majority of our tax base. 9.3% of the population takes up the majority of our tax base. I'm not in Wake County. I'm in a small county in Western North Carolina. Imagine what's going on in your county or out on the coast. And then add to it that we already have special needs children that we need to take care of and provide for. And they're the ones that are going to be taken from, not the average student.
Right. That's right. And so America first, and it is something that resonates with 83% of likely voters in that is a distinctly America first position. Look, you've got children who are in foster care who can't get care and resources. You've got a lot of children that need breakfast and lunch during the day to be provided by the government. We do not need to be taking from literal Americans, North Carolinians,
American children.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is unconscionable. The spirit is America first. It is. It's not a radical position. It is a sensible position when we are seeing all of our money go to Ukraine, when we're seeing all of our money go to others in these situations. And I'm sure that in these communities, people are seeing up close and personal that their resources that are paid for by us, we intend for it to go to our neighbors, our U.S. neighbors, are getting repurposed for others who are coming here illegally.
Well, you know, here's the bottom line. Why are we paying these kind of taxes if we're not reaping the reward locally? Why are we doing that? It starts to make you question things. So I started looking at the numbers today. When you think about a small county, because there's plenty of them, and we all know rural North Carolina is what's going to carry North Carolina in the vote. And when they start looking at the population of school children that are being taken from to allow someone that is not an American, not a North Carolinian, to have services, and it's the top line of the budget in their county.
Yeah. And people are paying attention. People are definitely paying attention. And I know even casual news watchers, because I'll be honest with you. I mean, there's probably, when you look at, it's probably 20% of all of us watch the news and focus on what's going on. I got to tell you, and I know people that actively avoid it, and it makes sense. I would too if I could. It's just my job. But they know and they see, and when they do start paying attention in August and September, these feelings are only going to intensify, Margot. They're not going to get better.
Well, I think that's why we're doing this, to give people a chance to catch the reel of the world, so to speak, every Tuesday and Thursday, and catch up on what really is going on. Because listen, a lot of people are just trying to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of stuff is done and hidden, not intentionally maybe, but just hidden from the regular news. So that's what we're here for. And this actually might be one of them, to be honest with you. I found this, and the OSBM, the Budget Management Services here, I think it's published in February 2024. So this is where my source is, right? So foreign-born population increased 8-fold since 1990. And I want to make one thing very clear for you trolls who want to make a big deal out of this. I'm married to an immigrant. All right. So we have nothing against people who move here, and because hell, a lot of them appreciate this country more than natural born citizens. So I don't want to hear any of that garbage. We love people who love this country and want to become naturalized citizens. Love them.
Legally.
That's right. And we're going to break this down. Okay. So there's a big influx. Now let's dig into the numbers and find out what we're talking about here. So, but by the way, these are known numbers. All right. So 8% of the population here in North Carolina are immigrants. That can be, 14% is about the norm when you look at it everywhere. So that's kind of where it is. Now, out of that, 58% are not U.S. citizens. Maybe they're, green card, maybe they're school, whatever. And 65% of those, okay, are illegals, right? So I know I'm throwing out a lot. So what's the math on there? 365,000, roughly 365,000 that are accounted for. Okay,
that's larger than the Republican base in District 11.
Okay, so
meaning registered.
Right, and so now we come back to the naysayers who's saying, well, of course, U.S. citizens are the only one that can vote. Well, we'd like to be damn sure. By the way, I want to tell you about the composite of those numbers. The folks moving in or coming here from Latin America are decreasing, and folks from the Congo and other nations that are terror sponsors, the higher proportionality. That's kind of what the matrix is of the immigrants who are coming in
to North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So let's match that with the domestic population who are coming to North Carolina. And the truth of the matter is we have bordering states, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia. Those, we expect some people to migrate in and out of North Carolina. But what you don't expect is that the largest population to move to North Carolina of any state is New York. Yes,
correct. And this is where the immigrants, we don't have a breakdown whether these are illegals or people are here illegally. We don't have a breakdown of that. This is just where, according to the Office of Budget Management, that's where they reside. Okay.
And so, let's take a look at that for a second. So heavily Democrat Mecklenburg, heavily Democrat Durham, heavily Democrat Wake. I think Dublin, I don't really know.
It's conservative there. Yeah. But that's your farming. That's your hog farm, your chicken farm, and I know, let me tell you how I know. The first time I went to Duplin to do a talk for the GOP, they gave me, and Mark Walker was there, we both gave a speech there. They gave us beautiful baskets but it really freaked me out because it was like the side of a ham. Now, Jewish people don't eat pork, but I mean, but by the way, lovely people loved it, loved it. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to get this way. And I mean, they're like, Sloan, you can't do that. Like, this is the official thing. You've got to do this. You've got to take it. Well, I'm like, okay, fine. So Mark and I got out and like, here, take it. So the hog farming there is their whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't really know that this sort of industry was here, but and so you can kind of understand, okay, they got migrant workers, right?
And Chinese company owners in the hog industry. It's the largest Chinese-owned business in North Carolina.
Ah, okay. So Orange is far left. Union is not, but they're on the bubble. Guilford, Sampson. Yeah. So look, if here's my thing. If there's no foreign citizens voting, what do you have to worry about?
Correct.
Why are the leftists all a flutter about this? What's the big deal?
Well, and if you're following the law, it shouldn't matter, right?
No.
Because legally, you're not supposed to have people that are not Americans voting in elections. That's a federal law. But we have to take it down to the state level because our North Carolina election board makes their own rules.
Yeah, I've observed that before. I'm not a big fan. So the more they scream, the more the left screams about stuff. Whatever they're screaming about, you can tell what they're hiding. So I want to show everybody this. This is in guys. This is in California. Look at where illegal are able to go and live.
Wow. Is that in San Diego?
I'm not sure where it is.
It looks like NorCal probably.
But I mean, you have to imagine. I mean, this is something that you would probably work all your life to be able to afford. And this is where illegals are housed in California. Let me see if I can figure out exactly what that is. Whoops. Yeah. And so again, when people see things like this, even people that aren't politically active, they come to one conclusion, Margot, and you know what it is? America first.
I think what we're seeing in Chicago and in Detroit, where Trump is really going out there in those small area rural communities that are inner city or really urbanized communities, and it's ticking off the fringe leftists because he's actually making inroads and they're speaking up because they know that what is being taken is really the services that they've worked hard to get.
That they've really hard for.
And they haven't gotten them. They've been promised them, but they've never delivered on it.
Well, that was in LA, by the way. So in LA, right, I mean, that's probably like a mid-priced place in LA, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you've got hardworking people that's not available. And I'm hearing that in New York, the prices of the hotels are astronomical. You know why? Because a lot of them
hotels,
migrants, right? I'm not going to call them migrants. I'm going to call them illegals.
Yeah, I think there's 11 of the largest hotels in New York City are now taken over by illegals.
So, guys, it's a very big issue. Now, sheriff races aren't until 2 years from now, and so the races that are important, obviously, we keep talking about Dan Bishop when we're talking about law and order. We're talking about too, calling your rep today and saying, where are we on the passage of the mandatory cooperation with ICE? That's something we can do.
Absolutely. And it's a call to action that we all should take up. We should all be talking about how we can help each other, because even if you don't live in a sanctuary city or an area that they don't cooperate with ICE, which would be like Charlotte, there's areas around them. Yeah, there's Gaston County that doesn't want that. So we all need to help each other.